This is the American Alpine Club's Legacy Series, a video tribute to the visionary climbers who made the sport what it is today, and a commitment to securing their legacies.
I entered college and took a course in gymnastics. That was my first introduction to gymnastics. But I immediately saw a connection between gymnastics and difficult rock climbing. Up until that point in time, rock climbers had primarily concentrated on getting up to the top of something relatively difficult. Form and style really didn't matter that much.
Taking that gymnastics course really changed my whole perspective of climbing. Up until that point in time, climbing by most people was considered an extension of walking. Look at the old grading scale in Europe, grade 1, 2 through 6. 1, you're walking. 2, it's a steep walk. 3, you're scrambling. I thought, no. If you're climbing small pieces of rock, it's an extension of gymnastic. And if you have a boulder or a small outcrop, you can treat that as an apparatus. You can actually do routines on it. When I was at Georgia Tech, there was what's called a wooden tambourine up there, just a plate. It had soot on the bottom of it. You chalk up and climb this rope and you touch that thing. That's where I learned how to use chalk for climbing. I started using it in 1954.
This substance was something of a miracle at the time. People were not using it there, and it became quite popular after climbers saw me using it.
And then I took it to the Tetons. It was a prime destination, 1950s. I think the first time I went over to the genetic boulders, I pulled out my little piece of chalk that I'd purchased at the pharmacy in Jackson. I said, you can use this. Chenard, he kept avoiding the stuff. We go bouldering, I don't know how many times, and I'd always chalk up, and you want some of this? No, that's not quite fair, I don't think. Well, I said, you have naturally dry hands, so you don't need it. Some of the California climbers had egos. I got along with all of them, and Powell told me one time in the deals, he said, the reason they get along with you so well is they don't see themselves in competition with you. Because you're out here doing this silly thing that people do on a day off, You can train and do the hard moves and so on, but it's not serious. You're not a serious climber if you just boulder. Well, when you look at the highball boulders these days, that is about the most serious type of climbing I can imagine. Bouldering has a life of its own. It doesn't belong to anybody. It changes with every generation. I've seen some of those things. Mandela, evolution, climbs like that. That was way beyond my time. I was probably reached my peak in the late 50s, during the 60s, basically. Been downhill ever since, Jim. And I've never really regretted it at all. I hear about people, I'm going to climb until I die. With me, once it was done, it was done. But I had these body weight exercises to go back to. Once every 3 days, I go on an exercise, do a bunch of pull-ups. That feeling of lightness, that's always been a big factor. It's connected to the feeling of flow and graceful performance. I can get that even at the age of 82, as long as I take my ibuprofen and Tylenol. I'm feeling like I'm 22 years old again. It just feels light.